Hi there and welcome to Wet Liberal Weekly. Although it's really getting less than weekly now, it is increasingly difficult for me to keep up with the schedule I've set for myself. You know, I'm having to make sure that I've recorded a CarPool for every week and now a Wet Liberal for every week, and I also have to earn a living. And there's the rub. Now, I've been asked a few times, mainly on Twitter, sometimes actually on the YouTube messages and everything, to define what a wet liberal is. And I think I may have done this in previous Wet Liberals, but I'll try and do it more clearly. Okay, now I was talking actually earlier today, interestingly, about neoliberalism. I was talking with the psychologist Oliver James for CarPool. I gave him a lift into Oxford today from his lovely house in the Cotswolds, quite near where I live. And he was very interesting about what he classifies as neoliberalism, which for people of my generation, i.e. bloody ancient, you know, there used to be these very simple delineations before the collapse of the Iron Curtain during the Cold War, of left and right. You know, right wing was American capitalism, the Conservative Party in England, you know, it won at the sort of liberal edge of that, and to Nazi extremism and the British National Party at the most extreme end. That was one side, and then on the other side was the left wing, which was, you know, theoretically the Labour Party in Britain, the Socialist Party in France, and the Communist Party in Eastern Europe. And once the wall collapsed, which was 1989, which was 20 years ago, that whole simple definition of politics really kind of collapsed with it. Suddenly it was much harder to really pick out who was truly right-wing and who was truly left-wing. And everybody became a sort of liberal of one sort or another, meaning a kind of, you know, inhabiting the central ground of political thought. And, you know, it's become so confused now that, for instance, our ex-Prime Minister, Tony Blair, was extremely to the right of the present leader of the Conservative Party, David Cameron. In fact, they're good mates. They come from the same class background, same educational background, privately educated, come from wealthy families. There is really no difference between them. I'm sure not the same can be said for the present incumbent in 10 Downing Street, Gordon Brown. He's from a slightly different background and a slightly different cultural heritage. You can't call him left-wing though. So a wet liberal basically inhabits the flippy-floppy central area of that. 1 minute agreeing with quite a, you know, what would traditionally have been called a strong left-wing view, and the next minute agreeing with something that would be traditionally thought of a fairly right-wing view, and then constantly flipping in between the two. And that's the area I inhabit. And I think the reason I wanted to sort of try and inhabit that part of the political landscape was because it's where most people are. You know, if I read the Guardian, which is effectively the newspaper that is the voice of the liberal humanitarian middle classes in this country, then I tend to think that I agree with most of what it says. And then if I read the Daily Mail, which is the newspaper of the sort of extreme, embittered, over-tax-paying right-wing members of our society, I sort of think I don't agree with much of it saying. And then I read a bit in the Daily Mail and I think, actually, that's rather a good idea. And then I read a great chunky article in the Guardian and I think it's a load of wet, soggy, over-emotional twaddle. I can't actually say it. It's one of my mother's favourite words. Twaddle meaning utter rubbish. And I think the term wet in the British parlance it's got nothing to do with being covered in moisture. It is a term that would have been used in British public schools say 50 years ago to describe a boy who wasn't tough and strong and eager to go and die for his country. You know, a wet person was a coward, scaredy cat, a homosexual, all those things. And it then became a term of abuse within the Margaret Thatcher regime in this country. Under Margaret Thatcher, she would call people wets who didn't agree with her, meaning they weren't tough enough, they weren't strong and masculine enough. And I'm very happy to inhabit that area of being wet. Oh, you're a total wet, Llewellyn. I mean, it's something I've lived with my entire life, and I stand proud. I am proud to wear the wet badge.
wish you would stop bloody trying to talk to me and just drive the car.
So yes, YouTubers, I do apologise for the lack of wet liberals. I will see if I can get bucket loads of wet liberal to you in the near future. And if you have been, as always, I thank you for watching.